Hello everyone, it's Friday and it is 50 on Friday, episode 12. And what a fucking day it is today. Today is September 28th for those of you who are listening on the replay. And today is a really intense day. It's an intense day for our political system, and it's an intense day for women everywhere. I didn't even want to do this 50 on Friday, honestly, because I noticed that a lot of emotion was coming up for me. And that's kind of rare for me. I have a lot of passion and enthusiasm, and I channel it in a forward motion. And I often don't take a whole lot of time. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so we take not a whole lot of time to feel things. But today with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's testimony yesterday, I took some time to really sit with her vulnerability and what she said about being sexually assaulted by this current Supreme Court nominee. And I feel like her story is every woman's story. You know, I was just scrolling through Facebook today, reading posts, and at least the people in my tribe have such high consciousness and generosity that I could really feel their shares around their own personal experiences, as well as how we are all collectively holding this moment in history. And I don't think there's really a woman out there who has not been somehow, some way affected by this, by the way that the masculine and feminine have interacted unconsciously throughout our history. This last week I finished a Greek mythology called Circe, and it was recommended by a good friend of mine who said it was just Greek mythology at its fucking finest. So I had to listen to that 15-hour tale, and there was a part in there where this goddess was on an island by herself, and she had been banished there from the gods, from the Titans, and these mortals come up, these sailors shipwrecked, and they come up to her island, and she feeds them and hosts them, and as they come back into their bodies after all the depletion, and they have food and drink. They actually ask her about who's the man of the house, and she says nobody. And the story goes that they proceed to attack her. And the first one rapes her, and then after that she gets this potion and she turns them all into pigs. And this happens time and time again as sailors shipwreck on her island. And listening to that caught me. I didn't expect that, because she had fed them and given them wine and made them whole and given them an environment to be safe in. And that was the consciousness at the time, that women were property. And if you didn't have a man there being your husband or your brother, your father, then you were fair game. So that is the consciousness in which we are finding ourselves right now. It's the end of that consciousness. And, you know, astrologically, we're also in this wormhole. We're in this time where Chiron, the wounded healer, has gone back into the depths of the unconscious in Pisces. From it had transited into Aries in April. Now it's gone back into Pisces, which is the mansion of the unconscious. And thank you, Michael Lennox, for really your Facebook Live yesterday was awesome about this. It helped me understand it even more about what's going on. So what I feel like, the Aries mansion is the I am. So before we're really ready to burst forth, and we're going to have another pass at that in February, there will be another transit of the wounded healer into Aries, that I am consciousness. But for this period, we are plumbing the depths of our unconsciousness. And wouldn't you say that that's what's happening? We're pulling the wounding and the gunk and the mire from our unconsciousness, and even metaphorically and literally. So Brett Kavanaugh is saying that he blacked out, or that he was drunk, or at least that's the testimony. Maybe he's not saying it. He has no recollection of it. That's what he's saying. But he blacked out. He went unconscious. And yet that information is lodged in the collective conscious. So we're excavating that, and it is not pretty. So I've been taking a moment today. Hi, Julie. I'm talking about a very difficult subject of the Kavanaugh nomination. And so, we are in a moment of this collective awakening to the trauma that's in our unconscious. Not just mine or yours, but all of ours collectively. The society in which we live that has created this notion that a woman's body is not her own, that it belongs to a man. And if you don't have, like I was saying in the Greek mythology, if you don't have a husband or a father or a brother protecting you, then you're fair game. So we're living in this time where we are all midwifing this incredible change on behalf of the feminine. I find it extraordinary, and I find it really painful. And as I was thinking about that Kavanaugh nomination, I was reflecting on my own experience with sexual harassment. It was 30 years ago, probably 31 years ago, 1988. Hi, Kira. Welcome. And Dr. Ford's testimony was talking about a time in 1982, and mine was in 1988. And I read somewhere in the news that Trump had tweeted right after her testimony that if it were true, she or her parents would have reported it. And that is a common scapegoating misperception. In 1988, when that happened to me, I was at my college, and it was a conservative Christian college. Yes, that's where I went. I am a skin shedder. And a man who was in charge of a think tank. He was an older man, like past 70 years old, and he was the head of a conservative think tank, and he came to my school and he spoke, and I got to hear him at a luncheon. And then he invited me to apply to a job at his think tank in Washington, D.C. And I had met my fiance in Washington, D.C. I was engaged to be married, and I wanted to spend the summer in Washington, D.C. So I was super excited, like everything was coming together. Isn't that amazing? So I went to the hotel. He said, come to my hotel for the interview. And now that would be maybe a red flag. But it's weird how, we live in trust. He was like, being at that school and having an elder approach me like that was like my parents saying, hey, just meet me at the hotel and let's talk about it. And at that hotel, he groped my body. No penetration, no clothes off, but he groped my body. And he said that when he was my age, a girl like me would not have gone out with a boy like him. And I will say that I pretty much froze. And I don't even know what I said. I don't even know how I got out of there. But I left, and I think I said something before I left, because he said to me, I would never hurt you. And when he said that, that was my indicator to my psyche that, oh shit, foul play is going on. So I woke up from that freeze state with that statement like, oh my God, you are doing something. Otherwise you would never have to tell me that you're not hurting me. So I went home and I went into the stairwell and I called my fiance, and he was in Washington, D.C., and I just cried. I just cried, just like she did in the testimony yesterday. You just cry because you're fucking innocent. You're vulnerable. I didn't have a clue. And his wounding was projecting onto me as someone who could help and heal that wounding. Yeah, thank you, Kira. So just watching that yesterday, I don't have a lot of scar tissue so that I know of, but how did that affect me? How did the fact that I fucking became a lawyer after that, and I think I became more defended after that. I certainly became more angry after that. But, how do we know? Because there's so many factors in life. There's so many things. Just life itself. And I made it out lucky. Nothing, no body parts were harmed, And some people don't make it out so much. And some people, their innocence is destroyed by their own family. So we have a lot of collective disease that we're working through. And it is, I believe we incarnated, particularly as women, particularly as midlife women, to help heal this in ourselves and to heal that in the world. Tomorrow I'm doing this, it's no mistake, all the timing, right? So I'm doing this one-day immersion tomorrow called Embody with my friend Himalaya. This is, if you watch the replay, this is happening in Encinitas tomorrow at all day, 10 o'clock. And, I'm preparing. My part of it is spiritual integrity. And I am so struck by integrity meaning an undivided, unfragmented self. Yeah. Right? And in order to be that force, we have to bring all of our parts together. These wounded parts, the shadow parts, the angry as fuck parts, the beautiful parts, they all need to come together in one whole, so that as on the inside we're undivided on the outside. And that's my message for tomorrow, that as we do our personal work, it matters in the collective. I think Dr. Ford is coming forth in this time, what is it, like over 30 years later, because this time is ready for her voice. This time we are ready. You could have called the authorities 30 years ago and they would have looked at you with a totally blank stare. I will say that there are some mothers, and my mother was one of them, that if I told her anything, hey David, if I told my mother anything in high school that happened to me, one time a teacher picked a necklace off of my chest and I told my mother, and she was on the phone immediately with the principal and that teacher. Don't you ever touch my daughter like that. That's who we need to be, that fierce feminine, drawing boundaries so that we give our daughters, we give ourselves the permission to use that voice, to speak and to say, that is not appropriate. Do not touch me. And that on the other side, that is heard and listened to. So together, undivided, we stand. Undivided because inside we have met our pain. Inside we have met our anger. Inside we have met our truth and our voice. So that outside, together and collectively, we can stand. And we can shift this. Humanity is going through a shift, and if we are to survive what we have created, we will have to shift it. And it begins with us. It begins today. It begins listening to these hearings, listening to the testimonies, taking note and seeing who are the people in our government that are not listening and getting them the hell out. And yes, Betsy says tomorrow, mention about the importance of voting. That's exactly right, because, well, there's two things. One is that if you live in a state where your senators are voting for the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, you need to call your senator today. I will post the phone number. In California, we have 2 Democratic senators, and they have Kamala Harris walked out, and Dianne Feinstein was a part of the questioning. So those women are solid forces supporting truth and supporting the feminine. There are other states like Arizona. If you're listening to this and you're in Arizona, you need to make a phone call. So check and know. Don't be asleep now. It's time to be completely awake. And then, of course, midterm elections are coming up in November. And I think we are experiencing the cost of our, I will say, those of us in the progressive, liberal side of the spectrum, I feel like we're experiencing the cost of our own fragmented party. You know, some people voted for candidates who were more in alignment with them, but it cost the entire election. So I think we're getting more savvy to vote for and support winnable candidates, because these Supreme Court positions are life positions. Yeah, they're freaking life positions. So yeah, there's a lot going on right now. And I think that's on top of also our own overwhelm, our own personal stress and our own personal overwhelm. So we need to take good care of ourselves and be with the parts of us. And, you know, as tomorrow in this immersion, we need to be together, particularly women being together, to hold and honor each other's stories, each other's life, each other's light, and each other's power. So that's what I'm going to say for now. Thank you for hearing me and allowing me to share on this show 50 on Friday. And this was episode 12. I decided to hang in there even though I wanted to quit today. And we'll be back next week, episode 13 next week. And thanks for your support and your love and all the big hearts. It's awesome. All right, Sat Nam. See you tomorrow if you're coming to Embody.